So this is one of the Q&A videos that I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to group them together. I'm going to answer questions as they were given, and they're going to be kind of grouped into similar categories. Now, some of these I'll be able to put videos to, and some of them are just, I'm just going to be talking. So it's going to be kind of boring in that sense. If you do want the audio, let me know, or possibly the transcript, but for sure, I can always get you the audio since there isn't a lot of visual that's going to go along with this. All right, so this first topic we're going to cover is basically speed control with your horse. Now, this is going to apply to any horse, but I'm specifically going to be answering questions for gaited horses. All right, there's not really any order to these. I just grouped them by type. So going down hills on narrow trails, my slowdown request is ignored. How do we fix this? Basically, work of stop and back. Best way to convince my horse to slow down. She thinks fast is the only way to go. And we have to stop straight because the trails are narrow. Okay, so it's a good question. A lot of these are going to deal with speed control. Here's the thing, and this is the part where I feel like I'm going to harp on a lot in these Q&A videos, is it does take training. And what I'm going to say is you don't need a bigger bit. You don't need a heavy hackamore. What you really need is to spend time in the arena, in the pasture, on the road, by yourself or with one other person working on these things. If you can't slow your horse down with the slightest bit of rein pressure in the arena or the pasture at the walk, the gait or trot or pace, and the canter, then you are not ready to be going up and down hills, and you need to be doing up and down the hills as well during your practice to make sure you can stop when it's narrow. So yes, I encourage people when you're training at home to ride in a snaffle or ride in a bitless bridle or a halter. Again, stay safe, please stay safe, but these things will help you have more control when you go on the trail. And you need to be stopping not after 10 feet or 20 feet, but your horse should stop very quickly, very lightly. And if you want this, you have to train. Now, I do have a free video on training the stop, and I would recommend you go through that with your horse, and then also, because that teaches you to do the stop from both the walk, trot, and canter. And that's going to be super, super important, is you can't ignore the canter. Again, I don't recommend people rush. I had somebody saying, well, we are rushing into the canter, but I'm like, if you want to be safe, you need to be able to stop your horse at the canter. Someone asked me one time, my horse, the first time I asked him to canter, he ran away out, in the field. I'm like, well, have you ever cantered in the arena and trained him to stop? She said, no. I'm like, well, are you surprised? So the answer to a lot of the slowdown questions is you have to do the training at home. All right, next question. I like this one. Downward transition. How do we get a good downward transition from canter to gait as opposed to canter from the pace? This is a great question. Now, this is going to be a little bit more advanced. If you're not doing a lot of cantering and you don't have the gait, this question isn't going to apply as much. It comes down to balance. Horses only have a good canter or even a good gait when they're balanced. So what you want to be able to do is get your horse to go to the downward transition, which can be hard because they kind of fall on the forehand when they do that. That's very, very normal for a horse to be on the forehand for that. It comes from, instead of just asking for downward transition, so like pulling on the reins, you almost need to prepare the horse by squeezing for a little bit more forward and then asking for that slowdown with the head down. If the head is coming up, then you know what you need to work on. You need to work on some head down. Again, not all the way down to the ground, but you need a balanced level head or very close to level at the canter, and then work on that slowdown. If it's a bad transition downward, I would stop, back up, go right back into the canter, and then ask again. If you get a good downward transition, quickly slow down to the halt and let your horse rest and think about that good transition. And then do multiple transitions. A lot of downward transitions from, walk, gait, walk, will help, and especially if the horse learns to balance on that one. So that's a really good question. I can get my horse to gait, but occasionally he decides he wants to take over, pop his head up, and move into a faster pace. Should I just continue to stop and reward every time he gaits? He can gait for the distances I ask for, but he just decides it's his turn to take over. Is there a proper way to discourage that? Maybe stopping and backing him up. He does this maybe 50 to 75% of the time. I can get him going. Sometimes I'll even stop him short and praise because I don't want to ask him for too much. Good job. Then we'll move forward again, and sometimes he'll offer a 4-beat gait on his own, and then later pop his head up and move into a faster pace. Okay, let's assume that the horse is just popping his head up because he's physically uncomfortable. He's not quite sure what you want him to do. In that case, really the best answer is you're asking too much. If I have a horse that pops their head up, I would immediately ask for head down, and if he moves into gait, I would immediately loosen the reins and stop and praise. And that's gonna, instead of like, how do we stop the behavior? We want to reward for the good behavior, which is when he's gaiting. And so let's say he's going along, he's gaiting, and all of a sudden head comes up, he pops out of gait, and he starts pacing. Well, what we're gonna do is, instead of like backing him up, we're gonna say head down, get into that gait, and if he gets into that gait, we're gonna stop and praise. And try that and see if it works. And then if he's still doing it, try to see if there's a trigger. Is it that he went too far and he's tired? A lot of times it happens when they lose their balance. So here's one thing you can also do, is instead of, it basically when he starts and you feel him start to change, because usually there's a feel or a change in the gait before they do that, sit up and forward just a little bit. See if that helps. Training a gaited horse to canter. Again, this sort of falls under speed control, but it is a general training question. I love training horses to canter. We end up doing it a lot in clinics, and I really like it. It's really simple, but it requires you to be brave. You take a small jump. Usually, you know, you can't even see my other hand. Okay, yay high to start with, maybe a foot. Sometimes you might need a couple feet depending on the horse, sometimes less. You can start with less, but if your horse doesn't jump over it, then you actually do need to get something a little higher. So what you do is you get your horse nice and relaxed. If it's windy and your horse is rushing, don't do it. That's not the right time for it. If it's a nice day and your horse is relaxed, put out that little jump or cavaletti, and then walk your horse up to it, and about 6 feet in front of it, you're gonna do a big go forward. You're gonna make sure that you put your hands forward. You're gonna loosen the reins. If your saddle has a horn, you're gonna put one hand on top of the horn to protect your gut. The other hand's gonna hold the reins forward and loose, and you're gonna let the horse jump over it. If he jumps it or canters at all, stop and praise. If he knocks it over, you know, fix it, turn around, do it again. But as soon as he gives you a little bit, like one stride of the canter, stop and praise. Do that just a few times at the beginning, like 3 times, 4 times, get a couple strides of canter, stop. Come back and do it 3 or 4 times every time you ride, and you'll get it. Again, I will have more advanced videos coming out about this, but that's all I can really say or, you know, explain in a short amount of time. Okay, I have a 7-year-old spotted saddle horse who is trained for gait only. I spent the last year working with him on being soft and supple. He's come a long way. He's very relaxed at the walk. When you ask for speeds, he gets anxious and either gaits a little or trots a little and wants to break into a canter. I think he's just anxious about gaiting. Should I let him find what is comfortable for him and gait and trot as long as he's relaxed? Should I require him to gait and not trot? Ideally, I like him to trot and gait on cue. He's just confused and anxious about speed other than walking and cantering. I keep the gaiting sessions as relaxed and short as possible now. Good job. That is so important. And you can make so much progress by keeping your sessions short and positive. All right. He does sound like he's just struggling. What I would do is I'd be like, you know, I don't mind. At the beginning, I would say, I don't care if you trot or gait. Well, we are going to work on a consistent speed. And I would do it in the arena or in the pasture and work on some circles. I'd ask him to stay at a slow speed. Pick different speeds in between the walk and the canter. Don't let him canter unless you asked him to. And pick slow speed and then pick a faster speed. And keep working on head down and relaxation throughout that whole process. I think that will really help. And focus on relaxation, but you pick the speed. And that's actually a safety thing. I don't let the horses pick the speed unless it's to let them save their brains. Usually you can pick the speed, but always give a loose rein. If he is holding that speed, don't hold him in it. Always ask for a speed and give him a loose rein. And if he speeds up, ask for that and give him a loose rein. I've seen that work in an hour on horses, that they will hold a slow speed by working on head down. It really is amazing how quickly it works. How to get a horse to slow down as in speed. I just bought a new Tennessee walking horse mare. She's 8 years old, very speedy and anxious to go. Similar question. Big motor and do endurance, so you need her to slow down and listen, especially the last 10 minutes of the ride to get her heart rate down. Some good ideas instead of fighting her all the time. Okay, well, we have to do some training at home. and then also some training and an endurance ride where you don't mind the time and you're willing to spend the training. Work on head down. Seriously, people, head down. I'm going to tell you that for almost every question. So you might as well just try it because you're going to hear me say it. Work on head down on a loose rein. If the horse is speeding up, slow her down and immediately drop the reins. Like literally, trust her, drop the reins. If she speeds up, slow her down again to the speed you want and drop the reins. And you may have to do that for a whole ride, but if you keep giving her that loose rein, she will figure it out. And especially if you pair that with working on head down ahead of time at the walk and the trot or gait. Oh, my tablet shut off. Problems of using technology instead of paper, but our printer wouldn't work. Okay, how do you teach speeding up at gait without losing or breaking into the canter? This is a great question. Everybody has this question. One, when I'm teaching a faster speed, I never let them canter without me cueing them. Always stop them, check them, don't let them canter. Rule 1. They better be holding a consistent gait at a slower speed before you ask for faster, and that better be on a loose rein. If it's not on a loose rein, you're doing it wrong. And I can say that because this is my video and we're talking about how I train. So there you go. Ask for a tiny bit of speed. If the horse is gaiting on a loose rein, tiny bit of speed. If the horse gaits just a little bit faster, go a couple steps, then go to a walk or a stop and let the horse go, oh, that's all you wanted. No big deal. We got this. So that's great. Just do that. How do I teach speed without getting the pace? So if you're getting the pace, you probably need to get the head down more. Head down. And you probably need to work on getting it more solid at the slower speed. When I'm training a gaited horse, again, when I'm working and I get that 7 days of training in and we get pacing and then we get gaiting in 7 days, they are speeding up by day 6 or 7 on their own without me asking because they understand, they mentally and physically understand and have the memory to do it. And it is amazing, just phenomenal how well that works. And how to get my Tennessee walking horse to stop while cantering. She won't stop. All right, that's gonna, guys, this is a training issue. You need to train her to stop at the canter, just like we train a horse to stop at the walk and the trot of the canter. So you need to go in an arena, work out the trot, or the walk trot, get that stop solid on a super light pressure. If you have to pull hard, you're not ready for more. Once you get super soft and you can get the canter, and then you do it at the canter and get it super soft. And when the horse stops nicely, stop and praise. And again, I'll have a link in the description to some of the videos that will help you, like head down, a little bit of canter training, also how to do a better stop. All those videos are going to be listed below. Please, if you found this video, please like my page, which is Ivy's Glide Gait on Facebook, or subscribe on YouTube. And please share the video so more people can hopefully learn about these things. And we have more Q&A videos coming up, so stay tuned. Thanks so much. Have a great ride. Call me Signore.